All right, we're going to do a little tour of Waukesha, a town where I lived for 23 years. We just moved back to Milwaukee, but this was a great place to raise our kids. That is for sure. So, wanted to start off by zooming in on this house down here. That is actually the first permanent home of a European settler here in Waukesha. I believe it was in the early 1800s, 1830s, 1840s. A gentleman by the name of Cutler lived there. That home was since moved to the location it is now. We'll get down to the park where it was originally located. This building was the precursor to what is now the Waukesha County Technical College, or WCTC. So, built in 1930. And is now the home of the school district of Waukesha. And not too far, this was really a little town at one time. Waukesha now has over 70,000 people. It's kind of a big small town. It certainly has a small town feel. It says office of the Foxhead Waukesha Corporation. So I believe it was the Foxhead Brewery. Waukesha was well known as Spring City for its water. At one time in the late 1800s, they actually touted it as having medicinal benefits, so you could cure your diabetes and all kinds of problems by drinking Waukesha water. That since is no longer the case, and probably wasn't then either, but we will get into more of that history in a little bit. Lots of trains in Waukesha, and I have posted some train videos on this YouTube channel. Here you can see a train now. One of the funny things about Waukesha is if you are late and you catch one of these trains, it could cost you an extra 4 to 7 minutes. So this is one of the old depots in Waukesha. It is now a restaurant that I enjoy quite a bit. La Estacion, and I apologize for my poor Spanish. But yeah, fantastic restaurant. And it is the actual depot that once existed here. And across the street there's a number of cool establishments, but Club 400 is actually the place where the gentleman who invented the electric guitar played. And Les Paul is his name, but quite a famous guy if you're in the music industry or into music or playing electric guitars. This is the town where that was invented. And so this railroad, I do actually have another video that unfortunately freezes part of the way through. I do a walk on an abandoned railroad track. This track is not abandoned, but it rarely is used. And if it continues away, it does split off, and then that will split off to the abandoned railroad site. So I am going to actually continue down this way, down the railroad. You can see the train crosses back there, cuts across here. There is one bridge in Waukesha that you can drive to that helps you get underneath the train. There's actually two bridges, one where this railroad will lead to, but where that train is now, those set of tracks, there is also a bridge as well. Very few people know about it. It is off of West and Newhall. And I don't want to bore you with too much Waukesha history, but Newhall was a gentleman, a business person. He built one of the grandest hotels in Milwaukee, mid-1800s, but then he settled out in Waukesha. Unfortunately, that hotel, about, I think a couple decades after he sold it, burned down. And I think a lot of people were hurt and died from it. So, but again, it was a huge deal at the time. All right, so I'm going to hit pause, and we will catch you about a block or so west of where I am now. All right, so we are about a block and a half west of where we started this video. You can see this beautiful house. So this street is called Dunbar. It's on the corner of Dunbar and West. Colonel Dunbar, Richard Dunbar, was a gentleman who essentially got Waukesha started as what was eventually called Spring City. And he was the one who came up with the aspect of the water being medicinal. And we'll get into that story in a little bit. So this side is interesting. This was actually the site, well, of many things I'm sure, but was the YWCA for many, many years. Mid to late 1900s, the YWCA got torn down, just sat vacant for a while, and then they built these homes and actually did a nice job building them so that it would look somewhat like the period of time that the original houses were built. So this is that newer little subdivision, and then here are the older homes built in the, I believe, late 1800s. We have some in the early 1900s as well, but these are gorgeous. So some of them are, you know, basic one-family residences. Others have obviously been purchased and then tough to maintain without some income, so they have become multi-family units. Here's one that, boy, they've done a lot of work on over the last year or so. So you can see new house, 100-year-old or more house, and that's going to be quite neat when it's done. So we will journey down this block a little further, and it's a beautiful street, particularly in the summer. This is like a canopy right here, all these great trees. So I will see you back in about another half a block. All right, so we're a half a block further. You can see again some really cute houses. So this is where it all began, the Spring City. So this is Bethesda Park, and you've got older vintage homes down there. I'm just gonna sneak around this facility here to give you a better view of the park. So you can see down a ways a pedestrian bridge. There's actually a little tennis court right over there, and that is the Fox River. So across the way where those apartments are now used to be a malt company, and so they made malt for beverages and food, and that was there until I believe the 1970s, which time they tore it down, and then these apartments got built. And then above the apartments you can see the hospital. So that's Waukesha Memorial. It expanded quite a bit, obviously, since it originated, and we are lucky to have that facility. So I've gone around the little shed here, and you can see off in the distance the railroad that we saw originally in the video. And then it's tough to make out, but I'll zoom a little bit. It says Bethesda. There was actually, to my understanding, a hotel right here, and there are local historians who know more than I do. I taught a high school class on local history, but they do this stuff full time. But the Waukesha Historical Society is outstanding. The people over there are fantastic. They gave me a lot of help. So this is it. It says the Dunbar Oak, and you can obviously read this, but they're guessing around August 1868, Richard Dunbar drank the water here and said it cured his diabetes. It was underneath a huge oak tree. Unfortunately, the oak didn't make it through a windstorm in 1991. They actually somehow replicated the tree, which is amazing. Several cuttings were taken from the still standing trunk. One graft was successful. So this tree is, I guess, a genetic duplicate of the original tree that Colonel Dunbar laid under as he drank from the water and had his diabetes cured. Again, I am not a medical professional. Do not take that as medical advice. And yeah, so there was a beautiful gazebo here. Again, there was a hotel over here across the street. And there is another bridge by which you can bypass the train. Like I said, that particular track is not used much anymore. All right, so we will continue on this first part of a tour of Waukesha. So I'm going to walk a couple of blocks. We'll get closer to downtown. I can at least show you the site where the original Cutler house stood. See you in a bit. So I don't know how old you have to be to remember Borden's Dairy Company, but there it is. It's incredible. They still have the gate, or at least a part of it. At the entrance, where you would drive in, and again, that was a malt company. I think it became Thompson's, but Borden's owned it. And I so apologize if I am wrong on any of the names. Just to give you an idea of where we are, that pedestrian bridge that I had referred to is right over there. So I walked to the other side of the park. But yeah, this was the entrance. So those apartments are down there, but I think it's pretty cool that they kept these little towers along with the gate from back in the day. And another fun fact in this area, so a railroad track used to run across here. So if you can see that sidewalk just ahead, I should say actually that street, a railroad track ran parallel to that street, to St. Paul Avenue, which is pretty cool. So these condos, from pictures I've seen, I think the railroad tracks would have run pretty much right in front of those condos. Pretty interesting. The other fun fact on this area, and maybe even more interesting, is Mary Todd Lincoln, and I'm going to aim this right about here, but there was a house, and those from way back in Waukesha history, people lived here in the 50s, 60s, 70s. There were houses built into that hill, and there was a house right about there where Mary Todd Lincoln stayed back in the late 1800s, and she was here for what else? Of course, the water. She was going to get fixed by the water. Speaking of water, this is the Fox River, and we'll give you a little quick view of that. This is a wonderful building, by the way. And this was a big push. Guitar Town, again, referring to the electric guitar being invented here. Very pretty river. And downtown is that away, but I'm not going to go downtown today. We're going to go straight up this street. It's called Wisconsin, and we will finish with Cutler Park. That is where the first house was built by a European settler. See you in a couple blocks. Okay, so here we are in Cutler Park, and this is really where it all started in terms of European settler development. So we came from the bottom of that hill. There's the hospital, just to give you some perspective. So this is Cutler Park. So a couple blocks east of the Fox River. And so the Cutler brothers actually inhabited both this area, and I think another one of the brothers had this downtown area, and at some point we'll do a video on Frame Park, and had that area as well under their possession. So this is also a city with some pretty amazing churches. That will have to be another video too. But here I wanted to get to the Cutler name, why it's called Cutler Park. So, first European settler in the area, 1834, established what is now called Waukesha. Back then it was called Prairie Village, and then it went to Prairieville. At the time, the Potawatomi Native American tribe had a village on this site. And that is your history. So that house was actually located somewhere around here. There are certainly pictures that show the house when it was at this location. One other fun fact before we go, I may think of a couple others. So this building was the original library, And it was actually, the money was donated, I think it was $20,000. It was donated by the Carnegie Foundation, or Andrew Carnegie. He and Rockefeller started getting into a competitive match in terms of who could donate the most money. And so that funding was used to build this library, and that was in the early 1800s. Since obviously the library's become quite a bit bigger. And then the one other thing I should show you, southeastern Wisconsin, unfortunately, Native American mounds, or Indian mounds, tribal mounds, have been lost. And there are not many left. Milwaukee just has a few, one in Lake Park, one in Mitchell Park. Well, here in the city of Waukesha, there's two of them, kind of back to back. You can see that one prominently in the foreground, the background, there's a second one. And so, yeah, those were burial mounds and are certainly sacred. And unfortunately, a lot of those have been destroyed, but we have those still in existence. So that is part one of the history of Waukesha, and I do want to say a quick word about the Shaw. We had a horrible event happen at our Christmas parade a couple of weeks ago. And you can see some memorials there here, but people died, a lot of people injured. I don't want to say more about it because it's almost surreal. Anyhow, prayers and support, obviously, to all those who were affected. And certainly I feel affected. But this is an amazing city, and so I decided with this YouTube channel, especially with what happened with the parade, it was time to show people what an awesome town Waukesha is. Well, that is the Shaw, as we call it, on the local level. So I hope you enjoyed this. We will get downtown, and there is so much history. So hope you're looking forward to more videos of Waukesha. Have a great day.